Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto, and joining me is the glorious co-host himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how the hell are you?
Good man. Glad to be another week.
We have a tight show for you today. One topic. These might be more of a trend going forward because I like the idea of deep diving on like a single thing. We'll see how it stretches, though. Recent rumblings seem to indicate that TNA may lose arguably their three best wrestlers. Oh. So, news broke at the mid to end of last week where Speedball Mike Bailey, in my opinion, outside of Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay is just like Shohei Ohtani at this point. He's so good at so many things. If you don't have to like him. It's a preference based industry. Stone Cold Steve Austin was so beat up when he finally became a main eventer. All of his main event matches are unwatchable garbage these years. Like you can't go back and watch a Stone Cold and go, that match he had at SummerSlam '90, it sure was good. It wasn't. His neck was fucked up. His back was fucked up. His knees were fucked up. The fact he could move was a miracle. Wrestle a good match, you're asking for a lot. But Stone Cold was extremely popular. So people didn't care that his matches were all formulaic, brawling around the ring nonsense. Draw's a draw, a draw, a draw. But as far as in ring goes, no one could deny that he wasn't a top 50 guy. That being said, when you look at talent, just straight talent, pure, unadulterated talent, few people are as good in the ring as Speedball Mike Bailey. It's just a fact. And he is no longer under TNA contract. I forgot when they signed him. I think it was maybe 2002. Not two. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. That was not when they signed him. I think it was 2022. They brought him in after his expulsion from America because he was banned from traveling to the United States for like 7 years. Huge chunk of his prime. Maybe it was 5 years. I don't remember. But he finally got cleared, started working in TNA again, built up his reputation, and really was fantastic. Well, his contract is up, and it seems like he's on his way to AEW. And even though his contract's technically runs till January, TNA has basically said, "You've done so much for us, we're going to let you leave early by a few weeks and start negotiating with whomever you want." And whom he wants to do it with is AEW. Now, that's not unsurprising because we also know that Jordan Grace is rumored to be done at the end of the year. Rumors have it that in January her contract is up. Now that may not be officially true yet. She doesn't speak on that. She's a consummate pro. Like she's very she's very good at being a professional in an industry where that's not readily said. But it does seem like Jordan Grace is heading to NXT by all intents and purposes. She may head to AEW. She could head to WWE. I don't know. But it does seem like when her contract is up, she's out. And recently, Josh Alexander has made comments that have made people think he's on his way out. Now, he's already said that when his deal is up, he wants to test free agency, see what's out there. That's not new. What is new is him basically, quote unquote, retiring from the indies. He had his last indie match for at least 2024, I think this past weekend, and made comments about how big things were on the horizon for him. I think was the gist of it. And for anyone paying attention, Grace and Alexander have been TNA's top female and top male wrestler for 3 years. They've also lost the Machine Guns. That was what end of probably February, March. And before that, Nick Aldis left. Now, granted, he was only here for a hot minute, but still. It does seem like as AEW and WWE continue this talent war of sorts, that TNA is the one suffering the most. Kind of like ECW in the 1990s and early 2000s. And now we're kind of left wondering, okay, what now? Obviously, TNA needs to start clearing out space in the main event scene. And I'm going to be a little bit grandiose when I say I don't think losing Alexander as a headliner is going to hurt. You're going to miss opportunities with Bailey, and you're going to get hurt without Grace. But that being said, I feel like opportunity arises before we get to that conversation, though, about who's the next men and women up within the company. How are you feeling about the possibility that all three of these dudes and dudettes could be gone in the span of 7 or 8 weeks?
I'm with you, man. I'm right with you with the tweet that you let out, man. It's gonna be hard to bounce back, and it's not like we've seen like mass exoduses before. We've seen a lot of what they call it, like a bus flip in WWE when they had a Black Fridays. They used to have
Mm-hmm.
when they fired a bunch, released a bunch of people. But these are potentially three top talents, not just in TNA, but to me in the industry period, that are choosing to leave. Now, for me, like I said, it sucks just in general. But when if I, because I was thinking about it coming off that tweet, ranking it, I'm like, much like Deanna Purrazzo before she left, there isn't too much that Grace hasn't done. Um, like we literally seen her literally transform, certainly physically right before our eyes, and what she's been what almost 4 years, 5 years.
She's been with the company for at least 2018, maybe? So like 6 years?
Yeah, yeah. So 6 years, long time, a lot of stuff done, incredible matches, transformations, what have you. What 2-time knockout, what 3 times, something like that, 3-time knockouts champion.
4 or 5.
Um, yeah. So been to the mountain and back around the world, yeah, yeah, all that good stuff. Um, so she's done her fair share. Uh, and not just the knockout championship, she also had, if I'm not mistaken, the digital media championship for a little bit. So she's done that. Um, Alexander, top dog for years, literally became the heart and soul of TNA, Iron Man, all that good stuff. Great tag team, great X Division, great world champion. So it's not much he hasn't done either. As for Bailey, to me, just don't feel like he's gotten his just desserts in terms of the spots they could have put him in, particularly with these last two X Division title runs, which I think they gypped him on because I don't think he should have lost that title in that Ultimate X match. And they just had him drop it again. Although this one, I guess, is more understandable if his contract was coming up. But I feel like we've been calling it for like the last 2 years for him to be kind of elevated out of the X division or into the X division to propel him into the main event, the way he could actually become a world champion, which he, has that written all over him. But for some odd reason, I guess they just didn't see it or didn't want to do it. And I think he kind of sat back and saw that and was like, maybe it's time for me to kind of move on. So, like I said, it sucks big time. I don't think, you can afford to lose those three talents anywhere. But I do understand if Jordan and Josh want to kind of see what other pastures they can run into. But to me, I feel like the company kind of dropped the ball on Bailey. So dropped the speed ball, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do believe. Now, granted, if we're going to use the term drop the ball, I do believe there are varying degrees to drop the ball.
Yeah.
Um, I would compare speedball to having the ball dropped. The same way I would say that TNA quote unquote dropped the ball with Monty Brown. Um,
Mm,
I like Monty. Heck of a talent. You have to remember the era that TNA and Monty Brown specifically was in. Everyone wrestled like Monty Brown. Today, no one wrestles like Monty Brown. But in 2005, 2004, everyone wrestled like Monty Brown. He was a WWE style wrestler in an era where people did not want to see that style. He was still pretty green despite the fact he was in his mid 30s. And TNA wanted him to work more indie dates to develop his style even more so he could do better matches because his matches were ho hum. They weren't bad, but I don't remember. I watched that era. I love that era. Not one Monty Brown match stands out. Several Kevin Nash matches stand out. A bunch of Jeff Jarrett matches stand out. But if you were like, what's Monty Brown's best match? I'd be like, oh, because they're all pretty rudimentary. His best matches were the ones where he got to face X Division guys who bumped like they owed him money. I think it was Jarrell Clark. He pounced so good he hit the bottom rope on the other side of the ring. It was great. That's when Monty was at his apex. Wrestling 25 minutes with Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles wasn't his thing. But that was the era where we were asking our main eventers to be better than the generation before. In today's generation, we don't have too few people who aren't like Mike Bailey in that regard. A lot of people wrestle like him. A lot of people have his style. A lot of people have his abilities. Maybe not his packaging. Maybe not the total kind of uniqueness that his karate persona brings to the table. But what we want these days are big bombastic characters who can also wrestle. And Bailey's not that guy. He's not a big bombastic personality. He doesn't make you think, oh my God, I can't wait for that promo. With Monty, we all wanted to hear his promos because he was a lunatic. He was sniffing, grunting, huffing, puffing. And you're like, this dude is about to eat a raw steak on live TV. Like, he's a maniac. I love it. I can't wait to hear him talk more. Bailey, the inverse. I can't wait to see Bailey wrestle. But while both men had world championship possibilities, neither man showed that other side of the game that they need. Monty was never a top 10 or even, I would even say, a top 20 wrestler in TNA in 2004, 2005. Bailey was never a top 10, top 20 mic guy in TNA during his tenure. And those are two areas you need to be very good at to be a top guy. So I do agree they dropped the ball with Speedball, but in the same vein that they dropped the ball with Monty. It wasn't that they didn't capitalize on the opportunity to put the belt on them. It was that they didn't capitalize on the ability to develop them further past their ceiling and get them to stay. Because both guys had, as they say, meat on the bone. But when you look at Marcus Corvon, Monty Brown's WWE persona, he was actually worse. You know, his matches weren't nearly as good. His persona was lacking the uniqueness, and he had that awful jazz music that just did not fit him whatsoever. And am very worried that all Speedball is going to be is that other worker guy in AEW, like 40 other fucking dudes. So we will see how they go with that. Alexander, I think his destination, I think, should be interesting. Do you think he's going to AEW?
I don't know. Cause it's just like it's a hard thing because like I feel like he potentially get like a better potential reaction in AEW because maybe that audience will be more tuned in than WWE's audience. But then again, we freaking got Mr. Ethan Page in NXT now, and I don't think he ranks up there with Alexander, even though they team together. Uh, so I think it kind of just all depends on the level of competition. Him looking at the scales and saying where he kind of wants to go with the competition. I don't know if he goes to WWE. I don't know if he goes straight to the main roster, but if he goes to the AEW, you know, the field of talent is vast, but you know they're also in this period now where like a lot of lines are being drawn. Like I said, Shane Taylor's got his guys. You got the Hurt Syndicate building, the Death Riders. Um, very few people are kind of um, standing out straight up and down on their own. They damn near in a position now where it's like the Death Riders versus AEW's own version of the front line.
Mm-hmm.
type of deal. So everybody's kind of breaking up in the kind of groups, and I don't know if that's something Alexander would be interested in, considering the fact that everything he's attained as a solo star was coming off of him being in a tag team, which I doubt he wants to go back into. So
Yeah, especially with Ethan Page. They apparently had some sort of falling out. How significant or serious? I don't know. But
yeah,
if he goes to AEW, I think Alexander will have a clearer path to do more in Japan, which I think there's a
yeah,
desire for him to do. But I do think the duo of them will add something to AEW's roster should they both end up going there. But that ends up leaving TNA with a hole. You lose your worker spot with Speedball, and while Alexander, great worker in his own right, it was the headliner spot, if you will. While Jordan Grace was the head of the Knockouts division, she was the linchpin that you could build around. You could develop talent around her. We've seen how poorly AEW has handled Taya Valkyrie and Deanna Prasto since heading over. They've really kind of hyper focused on Tony Storm, Maria May, and Sasha Banks for. Now I know Banks hasn't been there for a year, but that seems to be who they've been focusing on for a year and a half, 2 years now, along with Britt Baker, and Britt Baker's fucking terrible. So clearly there are some conversations we had about Jordan Grace hopefully going to NXT or WWE over AEW, at least with the women are concerned. But when the men are concerned, you want Alexander and Speedball in AEW because the litany of wrestlers that they're going to have to parlay against is going to be fantastic. But that does open up the question, who does TNA tap to replace them on the roster? Now, we already know kind of one, and that's Masha. Masha was and kind of is, in my opinion, the new linchpin going forward for the division. Multi-time, I think, knockout tag team champion. She won it with Killer Kelly, and then she won it again with Alicia. She's now current knockouts women's world champion. She's versatile. She's unique enough as a wrestler. She has a style that really suits her, and a demeanor and persona that stands out against the rest of the women in the division. So I feel like they're okay there. They're not going to have depth. They have talent around her. They don't have the depth of name value yet, especially with Killer Kelly being out. She was going to be someone who I thought was going to take big leaps into 2024 and 2025, and she still might, but she just had a baby. So you're looking at maybe 6 months at least to get healthy again, to get back in the ring. So it's going to be a while. As far as other women go, like you do have, Spitfire, their current tag team champions. I would not put any emphasis on Ash by Elegance. She's been a flat out dud. But we also have Heather by Elegance, the formerly Heather known as Heather Reckless. Let's see who else we got. We got Kylan King if and when she's healthy enough to return to the ring. Li Ying Li, Lila Yin Lee. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. She's going to be a factor going forward. Of course, Rosemary is always going to be a factor. Samantha Evans is getting a push these days. I know Steph DeLander is going to be a big factor for the division before she hurt her neck. So hopefully when she returns, she's going to return to that situation. Zaya Brookside and Tasha Steelz, they have talent, but I don't think they have the name brand or the look needed to stand out. So I think it's going to take some time to develop the next wave of talent, and I think Masha's going to have a hard time keeping things going at the same clip that Jordan did because she doesn't have the same team around her. She's going to have to start elevating some talent real fast. Do you think there's anyone on the roster, women's wise, that could match her step for step going forward?
not currently. Um, like you said, they try to present Ash in such a way, but she was just and she in that last match she had with Jordan was good, but Jordan is just on a completely different level. And I think she's at that level where she can make somebody like Ash look really good. Um, so it's hard because when you go back and you watch all the matches between Jordan and Masha, it's damn near anime fight
Mm-hmm.
at times. It's like it's insane. So I don't know if you did have some names that could have elevated it that they might not necessarily be at that level. Maybe it was Rosemary some years back, but not now. Tasha, God bless her, she tries, but like I said, uh, it's just a level of elevation that I don't think she's at. I don't even want Lish to be in the ring with Masha, even though she's gonna be in there uh trying to take it off her before the rematch with Jordan. So, look, I love Lish, but hope she don't get knocked out again. Other than that, who's the big big body that you've been calling for a minute? She gonna need some more development, but she was with
Savannah?
yeah, Savannah.
I think she has potential, especially if she's been spending her time while she's been gone. If she's been doing some training, getting herself ready to go, she could easily come in here and give Masha a very unique um, opportunity to stand out. Now the problem is Savannah doesn't have the name value to run with Masha at the moment, like you would need her to. But I
Yeah,
do think that if you build her up right, she could be the kaiju that could come in and really just wreak havoc. Because she's strong, she's intimidating, she's imposing, got a great look. I think she could easily come in here and do some damage in a great way. But that's going to take some time, I think. You're looking
it,
at 6 to 9 months at least.
yeah. It's so I just think this Marsha is kind of because damn near one for one with Jordan in terms of skill level. So like you said, she's at the top right now. It's gonna be rather difficult with the current roster seeing who could climb up. Maybe we could potentially outsource to kind of, I guess, pseudo extending this topic because you had brought up AEW and talking about the women. And speaking of Britt Baker, she was yapping back and forth with somebody who had came out and she was like, nobody cares, which is ironic coming from her. But I'm looking at the AEW women's roster and some names that I think, could be doing far more with that I think could thrive in a situation like TNA. What do you think about a Serena Deeb?
If Deeb leaves AEW, she's got talent, but she doesn't have enough personality that I think TNA should invest time in her. They need to worry about finding individuals who have name value, who have the look, who have the in-ring presence, who have mic skills. Jordan Grace looks like a megastar.
Yeah,
Serena Deeb looks like just whomever. Like there's so many women who look like Serena Deeb in the industry, who wrestle like Serena Deeb in the industry, who talk like Serena Deeb in the industry. I don't think you are in a good spot if you think Serena Deeb's going to be the person to carry you to the next era of fantastical wrestling in women's divisions. She's a great, it's going to sound like an insult. I know it is. If you watch WCW in 96, 97, even 98, 99, one of the names that was great on the undercard that could give you 7 to 9 minutes a night, be it a match, promo, entrance, what have you, who stood out, who did enough just to get by, was a Disco Inferno. You didn't want to put a belt on him. You didn't want to make him a featured part of the show. But if you needed 7 to 9 minutes, maybe he goes over, maybe he gets beat, maybe he cuts a promo before the match, maybe he does it after the match. If you needed 7 minutes to fill on the show, you knew you could put a guy like Disco Inferno on your show and at least have someone be different enough. I think Serena Deeb is that for a wrestling promotion minus the unique character. she can give you 7 to 9 minutes. If you got a roster stacked enough, Deeb can be that lower card wrestler that keeps you going when you need 7 to 9 minutes. I would not build a promotion around Serena Deeb. I would not put Serena Deeb at the top of my roster. And I look at her a lot like Ty Dillinger or Sean Spears. When he came into AEW, they're like, oh, he's going to be so good. He's going to be a headliner. And I'm like, he has the personality of a wet clam. What are we doing? And I feel like Deeb's the same type of personality. So if she does leave AEW, and I don't think she's going to, and if she did sign with TNA, which I don't think she should, I don't think TNA should promote her and book her like she's a big deal. I just don't see it. Not as a star, not as a true headliner. And that's what TNA needs in the women's division. Headliners.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, when you mentioned all those talents, I briefly thought about Thunder Rosa, but I don't think she's leaving either. Um, yeah, it's just Marshall might be at the top of that mountain for a while, so we'll see as far as the dudes uh facing Alexander. I mean, we talked about the main event scene several times now. Like you got everybody in the system. Well, not everybody. I couldn't see. I was gonna say Heath, but not Heath. Brian Myers being no top guy. It was about to get another title shot. We got Nemeth. Moose is always there. He looks like feels like he's gonna retire in TNA. Who's the kid teaming with AJ Francis?
Oh,
Casey Navarro.
yeah, Casey Navarro.
He's good, but maybe he more suited to the X division, along with somebody like Leon Slater, who's still, I would imagine, got some building to do. After that, there's always you could always elevate your boy Austin. Prize is still up for Bay if he comes back full health. Um, and I know I know this will be the last guy you'd be wanting to mention, but you could they always keep um, I'm gonna say Sam Shaw, not Sam Shaw. Freaking Mr. Perazzo in the building.
Oh, Steve Macklin.
Yeah, Macklin. Thank you.
So
He's always
when we
yeah.
start talking about replacements, there's a grander issue at play. This is an old fucking roster. So Dolph Ziggler's what, 45, 46? Now, granted, I've never looked as good as he looks right now. Period. Moose, 40. PCO, pushing 60. Matt Hardy, 50. Jeff Hardy, 48. Those are your men's champions. They are all over 40. Or they're either 40 or over 40. That's terrible. Nick Nemeth isn't moving the needle so much that he should, be champion. Moose isn't so good of a worker, he should always have a belt on him. PCO, I don't know what they're doing with him. And the Hardy Boys at least have enough pop that it makes sense you have the tag titles on them. But it makes it so much worse that they have the belts compared to who they have ahead of them on the title tier scale and who's leaving the company. You're losing guys who are 15 years younger than them. That's not good. So I think you need a hard reset. I really do. And the worst part is you still don't have Chris Bay, and you may never have Chris Bay again. So now you're pretty much having to refocus and reshift. You need younger champions. You need guys who are going to stick around for 3 to 5 years. You need guys who have the ability to come to the next level. I think with the way things have shaken out, one of those names has to be Ace Austin. Because again, we're not just talking anymore about replacing Jordan Alexander Speedball. You now need to start thinking about replacing Nemeth, the Hardys, and even Moose. Moose has said he's going to retire soon. He wants to retire in TNA, but he's already said the end of this contract is going to be probably the end for him, or maybe the end
Wow.
of the next contract. I forget what he said. So like you're looking at 3 to 5 years with Moose, and then he's gone. So you need to have guys in place. So it's not just three guys. You're looking at seven or eight who need to be put in the situation where they're going to stand out. And then you got to realize that one of those guys that you might put into that situation, Joe Hendry, may leave at the end of this year or the start of next year. I shouldn't say this year. At the end of next year or the start of the year after that, like he may be leaving TNA in the end of 2025. So you got a year. Is that enough time to warrant putting the belt on him? I don't know. Some people would say so. I don't. If they're not going to see him without the belt, they're not going to see him with the belt. Like, that's just kind of the rule of thumb. If he's a draw without the belt. If he's not a draw, he's not going to be a draw with the belt. So, but I think when you think about talking about guys who need to take the next step, Ace Austin front and center, I think he needs to be one of those names. He's absolutely somebody who I think TNA needs to put the metaphorical rocket to his ass and send him off into the stratosphere. A name I would skip, AJ Francis. He's got some personality, but when you think about him as a wrestler, he's kind of a dime a dozen guy. His promos aren't great. His gimmick is pretty common. So I wouldn't go there. I think Alan Angels could be something if you paired him with Frankie Kazarian and did something there, but not as a solo's top star, that's for sure. I think you need to start reshifting focus away from the system and get Brian Myers back with Matt Cardona. Because I think there you'll at least have a stable tag team division. Go forward there. I would like to see them give Diener some more roles as a comedic face. His stuff during 2020, even back in what was it, 2008, when he was paired up with ODB, was hilarious. And I think that's the kind of stuff you need to help elevate the roster. Although he's 40, I think, if not older. Crazy Steve is pushing 40. Eric Young is well into his 40s, pushing 50 now. Eddie is 40. And Eddie's kind of lost a step in the ring. You know, he's kind of let himself go, and it hasn't been good for his in-ring work. He's still very good. But when you look around the roster, it's like, oof, there are guys now better than him in the ring on this roster. And that was not something you could say for a bulk of his run in TNA. Still valuable, still has a lot to offer. But I think maybe sending him home for a couple months, having him shave, get a better haircut, and trying to get back to that Eddie killer spirit of old, I think is the way to go. Right now, even though we're talking about a youth movement, Frankie Kazarian makes the most sense out of anyone to elevate into the headliner spot with Dolph Ziggler because he does have a personality, he does have a gimmick, he does have a character, he does stand out, at least against the backdrop of this TNA roster. So I think there you have something. And with AJ Francis, if Rich Swann comes back, healthy and ready to go, in a better headspace, better mental space, I feel like First Class and Cardona and Myers just alone could make the tag team division so much more interesting and younger in the same breath. We're going to come back to him. There's another guy I want to talk about. Jake Something's a name you could elevate. I think the Good Hands need a lot more time. Gresham, obviously. I think Jonathan Gresham should beat Moose for the X Division title, and I think you should build the X Division division around John Gresham, assuming he doesn't leave in the next few months as well. If he's sticking around, I think you have him beat Moose, and you have him go on an unprecedented X Division championship run, and just let him wrestle.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Now you can do easily do aggression. What I thought they was gonna do with Bailey, which is let him run all the way until Destination X, and then I mean, yeah, they bringing back all the other concepts. I mean, they haven't retired Option C, have him do Option C. There's nobody that Gresham couldn't beat.
Mm-hmm.
So do it. Like it just that's he's the perfect person to beat. Moves. Now I don't know if they still doing the great Muta thing or if they started and then dropped that. But either way, um, Gresham along with Bailey was the other guy we was calling for to push into that spot. And now it looked like they might not have a choice. So.
I think one of the biggest disappointments so far, especially with his return, has been Sam McCallahan. He's just not the same competitor, same worker he used to be when he was really on a tear through 2020. That broken leg really fucked him up, and it's pretty clear. I don't think he can get back to that old form, and that's one of the biggest issues hindering TNA is that they don't have that Sammy Callahan of old. So I think beyond just the older talent, you got to find the next guy to replace Sammy Callahan, and I think either as a face or as a heel, I think the perfect guy to do that is Mike Santana. I think he's the kind of guy who has enough charisma, has enough of a look, has the working ability, and the overall dynamic atmosphere you need around a guy to be that type of presence. I think Mike Santana could be a huge name for TNA going forward. I don't know how long he intends to stay. I know he's happy in TNA. He speaks very highly of TNA. It's one of the reasons he came back when he was done in the AEW. But I think it's one of those situations where he needs to find that next gear if you really want him to be a headliner for your company. That being said, I think there are, obviously Jake Something's another name that some people would really like to see. But I think the biggest name that you need to have on your roster going forward, I mean, strap the rocket to his ass and send him off to the next stratosphere is Alexander Hammerstone. His booking has been fundamentally flawed. He came in strong against Josh Alexander, which I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have brought him as a heel. I would have brought him as the overly jacked figure he was in MLW with that kind of non-racist Hulk Hoganisms that he was pulling off. Like he would wrestle in jeans, had a red, white, and blue jacket. He had this really cool aura about him, and TNA has just kind of wiped that all away for big man, strong man, and it's disappointing. But if you can get someone who knows how to write for him and get a booking idea that can get him solidified as a headliner, I think Hammerstone could single handedly turn around this company and not only keep it going without Bailey and Grace and Alexander, but take it to the next level. But you have to know how to do that. And I think if you can do that, you can fundamentally change up the entire main event scene by also pairing Jake Something with Hammerstone as a rival. And then have these two be the Cena Batista for TNA that Cena and Batista were kind of in early 2005, where they were both kind of feuding with one another across brands, specifically as both up and coming stars for the WWE. You do that with Hammerstone and Something, I think you might actually have a very unique main event scene that they've never really had before of just big beefy boys doing big beefy things. Those are the two names I would fundamentally push alongside with Santana. I don't know, and Ace Austin. Like those are the four names that I would go with. I think they're your best opportunities to rewrite the brand, to reshift focus, and to not try to replace what you've lost in Alexander Speedball and Grace, because I don't think you can. But instead of trying to replace them, you deviate and you build a new thing to look at. You're not trying to find the next speedball. We have a Hammerstone. Like, it's
Yeah,
like we don't have cheeseburgers anymore, but we have pizza.
yeah. You know, I heard from digital media because PCO was just somebody you can easily. Or I mean, hell, I don't think that'll be a bad spot if the next person to get it was Rhino. Rhino's
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's a good old faithful guy that can still go. God bless Terry. He stayed in some really great shape. Obviously, we've talked about before his knees and whatnot, but he's somebody that can still go to a certain extent. That championship doesn't necessarily require a Will Ospreay or something type in that role. Um, we locked in with the women with Masha. I think she's have a monster reign. Tag team right now secure with the Hardys. It's a Hardy kind of honorary thing, and they can still go, which is still mind-boggling because it feels like both of them are Bruce Wayne and Dark Knight Rises. But kind of refound some of that swag. As far as the exhibition, like you said, going the direction of Gresham and for the four, I don't know how I forgot Mike Santana. I mean, he's actually been the one that's been getting the proper build to the main event. And then, like you said, Frank Kazan, he just feels like he got next in that regard. Love Nick, he's been doing a great job, but you got to look towards what comes after him. So, like you said, Santana, Kazarian, Austin, and like you said, Hammerstone, who I'm putting last because, like you said, the build has been it's been shaky. Um, like I said, he that first match with Alexander, he caught a chop with his chin
Mm-hmm.
and his chest. I'm like, that's insane. So yeah, they kind of got to rework that. But yeah, now that we done kind of laid out the field, they got some good options. They just got to put the pedal to that metal. Like you said, you can't replace these three individuals. They top tier. Like I put them against any three anywhere. Um, even against New Japan Elite rosters. They're just that good. But like I said, two of them has done most of what all you can do in the company. And Bailey, like you said, he was missing that pivotal piece because I don't look forward to seeing Bailey on the mic. And he's interested on the mic, but not to the fact that like, did you see that Mike Bailey promo? So that's understandable. But now that you can kind of lay it out the field, it tracks. And if they can acquire some new names, like you said, they got like what's she going by now? Mina Lee.
I think it's Lee Ying Lee,
Okay, you got
Lylan
her.
Ying Lee.
Yeah, you always got some interesting names circling in the X division. You can rework some guys like you mentioned in the tag team, and yeah, so they got the names to do what they need to do. It's just like you said, it's building that notoriety. Like Alexander was like the non-talking, specifically wrestling guy in the North, and he became a superstar because they just let him go. Um, Bailey let his matches speak for him. And Jordan, like I said, she came in as Big Mama pumping and like evolved into like a female Super Saiyan. So it's like, it's kind of hard to compete with that. But sometimes, I mean, we've seen them roll with worse punches in situations we didn't think they was gonna get out of, and as much as this sucks and hard to bounce back from, technically, on from according to the internet, they wasn't supposed to bounce back from Demore, you know.
They weren't supposed to
So
bounce back from losing Styles and Sting in a month.
yeah, so you know, you said,
I don't want to say TNA is going to be fine because that would imply that they can just keep going and not
yeah,
change anything else. They can be fine. They can be better than they were, but they have to make moves. They have to change some of the things up. Stop focusing on Ziggler. Stop focusing on Moose. Stop focusing on the Hardy. Start focusing on younger guys who are going to be there for longer than a year or two, and start building up Santana. Santana should be the digital media champion. Put the belt on him. If not him, Ace Austin. Gresham should be the X Division champion if he's sticking around. If he's sticking around, you put the belt on him at the next show. Go. Hammerstone and something, and maybe Hendry should be the headliners going forward for the rest of the year, if not longer. Those are the guys that you need to build around on the roster. You can still use Moose, but Moose needs to now be in the helping elevate guys to the next level stage of his career.
yeah, like Santana. Yeah,
Right. And he's done that. He's done that. I will never say a bad word about Moose because Moose has been someone who has been such a good surprise. When he
yeah,
came in, you didn't know what he was going to be. In Ring of Honor, he was just the big, tall, former football dude that did the little arm thing and went
yeah,
Moose,
yeah,
Moose. He wasn't even the most impressive part of his entourage, if I remember correctly. Stokely Hathaway was.
yeah, indeed, yeah, yeah.
Veda Scott was.
We literally just watched Moose get it out the mud. Like I'm remembering Moose um grinding it out with the damn the grand title that they
Mm-hmm.
had. So he, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he come in with uh Mike the Miracle Bennett?
I think so. Let me double check. He
Or
debuted in
some
2016, signing aligning with Mike and Maria Bennett.
Yeah, so Moose done been down, he done been loyal, he done like he done been there. He grinded out and absolutely deserved to get all the success that he's gotten. But I didn't even know about the retiring thing, so I get it though. But yeah, like we've seen him go from just the hand, just the guy in Ring of Honor to being like somebody that can easily give you some of the best matches that you'll see a big man have. So yeah, Moose is an absolute stud. Edwards is always dependable. He's likely to retire in TNA as well. Um, but like you said, you need to start shifting the focus towards that. Who would you, real quick? Who would you line up as a team to dethrone the hardest?
It depends. If you want to go young, you have a few options. Kind of young, you got Top Flight, because even though Swan's in his mid 30s, you also have Casey Navarro. You have the Sinner and Saints, I think is what they're called. They're also known as the Northern Armory. Travis Williams and what's the other guy's name? Judas Icarus. You also have the Good Hands, who haven't really gotten a lot of love. You could start promoting them. If you want something more serious as a stalwart team, you have the Rascals. You have Brian Myers with Matt Cardona. You now have Cardona and Edwards. I wouldn't go with Cardona and Edwards. That's a fun little team, but if you're going to do anything with Myers, I would do Cardona and Myers, not Myers and Edwards. If you want something fun and just completely wacky, why not Tommy Dreamer and a Rhino? But I don't think they're going to do that either. I think maybe if you don't want to do it with Top Flight, maybe you have Moose team with somebody and have him win the tag titles once he drops the X Division title. That could be interesting.
Would would you pair Macklin with Young?
Brother, I wouldn't keep Macklin. I don't see the value in him. And honestly, controversial. I wouldn't keep Eric Young either. I would see if I
Mm,
would I would see if Triple H would make a trade for him. I don't know who you'd get back for him. Feels like you're trading a
you
kicker who's
you
missed 26 kicks in a row and you're trying to get rid of
you
Eric
would
Young. But
you wouldn't put him in a backstage role?
if he wants to be, sure.
Yeah,
I just can't have him on TV anymore.
yeah.
Maybe pair him with if Eric's willing to stop pretending that we take him seriously as a tough guy and wants to go back to being a comedic wrestler, I'd pair him right up with Diener and have him be a comedy tag team. It'd be great. I don't think he wants that though. I think he wants to pretend he's Triple H Jr. and like,
Yeah,
listen, you're brother,
yeah,
you're not.
yeah. It was great when he looked like the Peter Griffin when he had the bird beard
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, but now he looks like a guy that would have been like a low ranking villain in the season of Sons of Anarchy.
Brother, he looks like Snitsky. He looks like baby Snitsky. He looks like the baby Snitsky kicked.
Oh,
And
that
it
would be a
was
half
his
bad
fault.
storyline. That would be a half bad storyline. But
Now, if you want to
yeah.
keep Macklin around, find him a tag team partner that makes him relevant. I don't know who that would be. I don't know. And it couldn't be someone just off the roster. It would need to be a free agent, someone who's got something to vibe with him. Truthfully, I would remove half this roster on the roster page.
I wish we could do like an AEW, like we said, because I'm obviously more a fan of Michael than you, but if we had to send him so he could be with his wife, I'd be like, can we get like Shane Taylor Promotions? Bring them in, that'll be sick.
If we could trade Steve Macklin to AEW, Shane Taylor would not be a bad return. I would probably. Who would I want? Maybe Josh Woods
Mm,
with a new nickname. The one name I think TNA should absolutely climb over themselves to get when he becomes a free agent, because he will become a free agent, is Danhausen. Merchandise mover, unique, popular, draw. Get him on TV. Have him do shenaniganry. Give him the digital media championship. If Joe Hendry is still there, put them on television together as often as you can. Same with Diener. Money. It'll print money. As far as like sending someone to WWE for Eric Young, should he want to go? Honestly, I don't think you should worry about that. I think Indy Hartwell. I think
Oh
bring her
wow.
in. I think she has the charisma and the uniqueness to be kind of like Steph Delander as far as like a personality on your brand, even if she's not the greatest wrestler. And Indy's fine. Indy's not bad, but she's not great. I think you could really get something out of Indy Hartwell. Same with Riddick Moss, I think. He hasn't been wrestling much,
Mm.
but he recently took part in a Black Label Pro Day, so to speak. And the dude is a hoss. And he hits the ropes as hard as Bronson Steiner, whatever we're calling him. What's his name?
Braun Breaker.
Bron Brecker. He hits the ropes as hard as Brecker. And he does it with the same kind of intensity. And he looks like a fucking tank.
Mm.
Maybe you don't put him in the main event scene, but like, if you can book him and promote him as a dude who is just a physical freak of nature, which he is, ah, ah, new digital media champion right there. All right. I think that's it for this week. Marcus, any final thoughts on anything with the TNA roster and the big changes that have happened?
I was mile a word, man, but I, like I said, us going through the options, like you said, they just changed their mindset. They have the tools needed to reach remajigger the board. There's no replacing those three because just what they've been able to do in their 10 and 10 and to become the stars and the performers that they have been is just on another level. Like I said, I'll put the three of them against any three anywhere else. But they had to move on before from other names, like you said, losing Styles and Sting in the same month. Other names and whatnot, they have the people there, particularly now laying out the main event scene to go in a direction that could be some real special. They just have to change their mindset, change a couple characters' directions, and they'll be good to go. Like I said, they have the schedule lined up. They got all the shows that they want. The fact that Genesis is coming back, I think they're gonna do a live show coming up, a
Mm-hmm.
live Impact. Yeah. So it's some exciting stuff. They got to reshape the board. Like you said, we don't necessarily know. Like we know Bailey's likely gone. Josh, like you said, alluded to free agency on his last thing, and then the independent thing is also raised eyebrow. We don't know necessarily about Jordan, but the situation with NXT is like you finally get the girl, and then like you befriend this new like cool surfer dude, and he's just hanging with your girl a little too much. But it's but it's all cool, dude. It's just tubular, just hanging out, bro. And then slowly but surely, your time with it gets less and less, and their time gets more and more. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, it's good to know that they do have options.
And that's something to keep in mind. They do have options. And that's something that I think is important to note. This is not doom and gloom, it's opportunity.
Exactly.
Apparently, Alexander's contract ends in February, according to Wrestle Talk. So, all right. Next week, I have a topic idea. The real WWE in 1997. Recently, this image, and I think you've seen it because I retweeted it on my Twitter account, or the website's Twitter account, I should say. It had The Rock, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Kane, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Mankind. But with the exception of The Rock, it was all circa 1997. And it seems like WWE is really trying to recontextualize the birth of the Attitude Era as like The Rock, Stone Cold, and Triple H. And I'm going to push back against that. Next week, Marcus, I think we talk about who the top 10 WWE superstars in 1997 really were. And I don't think it's this image that we see on screen right now. How's that for a topic idea?
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and make a little note on that. Top WWE guys, 1997.
So that'll be next week. For us, though, that's it. RealNerdCorp.com. Check that out. RealNerdCorp.com. We're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground. YouTube.com/Wrestling Underground. We're on Twitter at NERDCORP. At least I think we still are. Let me double check that real quick. I may have changed it. And if I have, I think I've been saying it wrong for weeks.
Oh
Oops.
man, it's been 2 years already.
What do you mean it's been 2 years?
Oh, since JDF.
Oh, yeah, it has. We're still at NerdCorp on Twitter, even though the account says Wrestling Underground. We're the team with Kenta Kobabe and, of course, Danny Pudi saying, Larry, I'm on DuckTales. It's been up for 4 years, and it's not going anywhere. You can find Marcus on his Twitter account at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, where they talk GLEAT and other things in pro wrestling, which you can find on the True Penny Show Twitter account, TruePennyShow. I'm on
Yep.
Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut, ChadSphotoHut. Follow us there. Blue Sky may be coming for us. I don't know. We'll see. That seems like a lot of social media accounts for a non-profitable podcast. Follow us on the website, Real Nerdcorp or RealNerdcorp.com for right now. That's going to change soon, but for right now, it's still RealNerdcorp.com. So for Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.